If you could see what I see, you'd lose your breath for sure. You are the perfect replications and the ones that I adore. I carved you from a diamond and polished you with love. Then I sent you out beyond the veil so you might choose the love. Oh, my sweet creations, your beauty makes me weep. Oh, my sweet creations, the whole world's at your feet. And one day soon you'll see it. If you could see what I see, you'd never lose your smile. For you walk in thy own footsteps when you walk that second mile. These are more than words, my love. This is poetry divine. My signature is everywhere, for all of life is mine. One day you'll see what I see, and you'll come to realize that every tear you ever cried, I wiped from my own eyes. I know your every feeling, and I felt your every joy. But you and I are one, my child, still illusion was the choice. If you could see what I see, you'd lose your breath for sure. You are the perfect replications. You're the ones that I adore.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Morning, sisters.
Good morning. Good morning.
So today we have a beautiful topic, and thank you for that beautiful song. But it's really our relationship and connection with the Supreme. And when I think about being able to witness the self through God's eyes, I'm quite sure that the way I would even think about myself would become quite different. And so when we speak or we think about ourselves, we have only the experience of this dimension and this physical perception. But it's good to see the Creator who's created us in the way that we are originally supposed to be. What is that vision? What is that clarity in terms of who I really am? So, sisters, what are your thoughts about seeing yourself through God's eyes?
This song, as you said, a beautiful song, If You Could See What I See. It really gives us an indication that perhaps our vision has not been, that we haven't seen everything. And perhaps it's also our upbringing and many influences in our life that creates a certain attitude towards God. And very often that attitude is mixed in with a bit of fear as well. And so when we come into this awareness of being a soul, we start to begin to grasp that there is another vision, another way of seeing things. And just as God sees us very differently, we also begin to see and understand God differently. And what a beautiful divine parent that we actually have, and that punishment and judgment could not actually be further from the personality of this divine being. So just, broadening that perspective, that view, to try to grasp how extraordinary this personality of God is. And then we can start to understand what it means when we say God is our mother or God is our father. What does that really mean to us? That we are not orphans, we behave like orphans, but actually we have this parent who is fully responsible for us, at least at the level of the soul. If we try to understand that more fully, that someone is looking out for us in an absolute way when it comes to taking care of us as spiritual beings. I'll stop there.
I was thinking, sometimes we kind of made God the kind of person or the soul or the instrument we blame for things happening, good or bad, in our lives. And yet, what is amazing is that I'm remembering a poem where it says that, and I'm sorry, I'm not even remembering the name of the poem. It's Letting Go, actually. So what happens is that the father takes the child to the playground and then allows the child into the playground. And then the child plays. And then when he's tired, the parent is waiting at the gate for the child to bring him back home. And so actually, in a way, when we look at our lives, we've had such a liberated parent who's said, okay, go do what you need to do. And then no matter what we've done with ourselves, is completely responsible to take us back home. And when we look at it in that way, instead of thinking about what is going wrong, it's nice to reflect on the fact that how have I chose to live my life? And I think in that context, it really is something where we take away the blame. And I think only when we hurt, we kind of always look up to the one we closest to, because we know in relationships who suffers the most, the people who are closest to us. So in humanity's case, God is being the closest relationship. And so we blame God for everything that has gone wrong in our lives. And yet, actually, these are choices we have made. So I think a beautiful opportunity to take on both things, because sister, you mentioned about punishment, and you know how we think that God is a punishing God, but it's not because God punishes, but because God is such a powerful image of what is true and right, that when we think about God, even we feel a little ashamed and embarrassed. And so out of our own shame and embarrassment, we just need someone to blame. And so I love the fact that, you know, God is not a punishing God, is not responsible for our actions. We actually have the authority to act in the way that we choose. But we also do have a chance now to rethink how we are living our lives.
Which brings us to today's topic of karma.
We're going to
Or
speak
actually-
about our relationships with God. Yeah. In which way we can help those relationships that we have with the divine, that can help us to kind of look at life in a completely different way.
When you're
Yep.
looking at, okay,
Yeah.
it's okay.
No, you were taking up relationships yesterday as well. And I think
Yeah.
this is the time for us to go into the depths of how a relationship with God can actually be the change agent, you know? It's not
Yeah.
about me asking God, but actually in a relationship, there's a different kind of benefit. So it's nice to look at it in that way. How do we relate with God that makes a difference?
What comes to me, two things. First of all, there is faith. And when there is faith, there is trust in any relationship. And when we have faith in God, that becomes the first step into building a relationship with God. Because immediately after faith has been established in the relationship, then there is trust. And faith is established in any relationship where there is an understanding, a very clear understanding between two people. When we know who we are and we know who God is, then we have the ability to build a clear relationship with God, a relationship that is not cluttered with a lot of falsehoods. Like what Sister Belinda was saying, that, you know, we've come to believe that God is a punishing God, and we fear God in that sense. And if you fear somebody, you can never really love that person. You'll always be doing things out of fear, trying to stay out of trouble. But when you begin to understand that God is love, and that God's love is as huge as the ocean, it accommodates every single person. Even that feeling of not being worthy to be loved by God disappears, melts, and you find yourself wanting to come closer to God, wanting to get to know God better and to understand God more clearly. So in this relationship with God, we are dealing with a soul, a supreme soul, who is completely clean, pure, and very, very transparent in a sense. And those values of God are the ones that allow us to come closer, allow us to trust God, and then bring us into a state of loving God, because now we begin to understand the mistakes that we had or the concepts that were not right about God that are now being put into a very clear perspective. And so you begin to feel loved, begin to feel supported in a way that you've never experienced in your entire life, because you are coming into a space of complete truth, of complete trust and complete love. And there are no little gaps there, that can make you think, oh no, oh no, oh no, no. You are being brought into a space of total openness and love.
Sister Fatima, you're reminding me of a very profound experience that I had when I realized that you can't make deals with God.
No.
I think that, love is unconditional. That means God doesn't love you when you get it right and not love you when you get it wrong. And I think that led us to make our relationship with God one of contracts, if you do this, God, then I will do that. Or if I do this, please will you do that? And it was such an incredible experience when I realized that that was what I was doing. And it was also extremely liberating to fully grasp that God's love is unconditional, and that, when things go right in your life, it's not because God's pleased with you, and when things go wrong, it's because God is displeased with you. And as Sister Usha mentioned, this whole thing then of blame. So I promise God something, and then something goes wrong in my life, and then I feel he hasn't pulled his side of the bargain, and I blame. And yet we cannot bargain with God. God's love is unconditional. And we will be talking about karma and our own actions, and we will see how that actually works.
And there's a little question in the chat also about predestiny. And I think instead of chatting about that now, we'll take it up tomorrow, because it'll kind of lead into our discussion tomorrow, because it's about action. But in terms of relationship with God, what I found useful is that, in this world that we are living in, we can't live as islands. We are not individuals, and we can say that the world revolves around me. Our whole life is about interactions with others, and so it's relationships. And so in every relationship, whether it's my mother, my father, whatever it is, there's a general tendency that if I relate to my father, because of who my father is and how he treats me, it gives me a sense of value and respect. So our relationships are constantly, in a way, creating a codependency. And yet what we see in the world today, that none of us can say we have perfect parents, perfect friends, perfect spouses or colleagues. Everyone in this world actually has reached a point where something or the other is what they're needing as well. And so we came into relationship to create an interdependency. And yet what's happened is that those relationships have either become where I'm the one everyone is leaning on, or I've become so codependent that I can't function as my own and I just need the other person. And so there's such an unbalance, which is really one of the main things that relationships create so much of sorrow. And so for me, please pardon me, I'm not using God as a useful entity, but it's so beautiful to have a kind of a mentor in our life. You use the word parent, but above even a parent is someone who actually can cover all spectrums of relationships. And so an example in everything. So if you think about the qualities of God, it'll be the ideal father. The personality of God will be the ideal mother, the ideal friend, the ideal teacher. And so just by having an opportunity to deal with someone who doesn't have an other side and another gender, or is not in any way stuck in their own kind of pain or sorrow, helps me to look through that, into that relationship, and actually find myself. So when I experience true support from the Father, I learn to experience what true self-respect is. When I can really feel the compassion of God as my mother, then I feel safe and secure. And it's almost like what I need to bring out into my life at this point in time, so that I can actually enjoy all the other relationships, is that I take from God, and then when I'm connecting with others, I'm not really taking from them, but I'm just sharing.
You know what comes up now as you're talking also is that God is our teacher. Is a very powerful point, in that God doesn't do things for us. God teaches us how to do things. You know, that whole, there's a saying that if you teach a person to fish, they will stop asking for food from other people. They will go and fish for themselves. And that's how, for me, I feel very, very empowered by the fact that God does not do things for me, but God teaches me how to do things. He will guide me. He will stand behind me and make sure that I get these things done correctly. I mean, how to live, how to understand myself as a soul, how to communicate and be part of the community of souls in the world who are in bodies. You know, this whole teachings that God is teaching us. And I really appreciate that, because before, as Sister Belinda was saying, we used to think that God has to do things for us. We would ask God to do something, and if it doesn't happen, we get upset, and the relationship is spoiled. But now I have come to realize that the teacher teaches me how to live, how to conduct myself, how to be with other people. And that is more empowering than having things done for me.
Maybe just a last word. I was thinking about our lesson that we had this morning, and God gave himself the title of obedient servant. And of course, it is the humility of God, but even more than that, a servant is the only one, a true servant is the only one who takes nothing for himself. His life is to serve the other person. And it kind of resonates with what Sister Usha was saying, you know, that this nature of God, of really not needing to take anything. It's just extraordinary. Thank you.
And I guess maybe before we go into our meditation, the image to have is that God is the only being in this world that never possesses a physical body. And so then will never actually belong to any race, any creed, any gender, any nationality. And that's why we can also totally belong to that one unconditionally. So as we go into our meditation, I'm going to invite you to hold this image of yourself as a beautiful being of light. And as I come into that awareness that I myself am free from this identity of being a male, a female, of any specific gender or nationality, I'm able to focus my attention on myself as a living being of light energy. And in this awareness of being light, I am completely free from any barriers or boundaries. And in this powerful awareness, I'm able to take my attention even away from this physical space and lift my consciousness above to the home of the soul, which is the world of pure divine light. And in this world of pure light energy, I find myself amongst many, many millions of lights. These are the powerful images of all souls of the world. In this world of light, all of us 7.5 billion souls are residents like stars in that unlimited world of light. And each one of us is kept powerfully, safely in a wonderful hue of peace and love, where the central focus is the most powerful being, God. And so we coexist in the sea of love, of peace, at a pivot point, which is the Supreme Being, who is the ocean of love, the ocean of peace. But this ocean of peace becomes our loving mother, our caring father, the wise teacher, the trusting friend. And as I stay in this awareness, the soul is able to absorb all these powerful experiences of being respected, being cared, being enlightened, being trusted. And this allows the soul to become still, content, full. As I allow myself to absorb these vibrations, I find myself naturally radiating these vibrations outward. The contentment and the stillness inside of me opens my heart to radiate that peace and love out into the world. And so I take this beautiful fragrance of God's peace and love, kindness and joy, and I bring myself into this physical presence where I play my part to begin to enjoy the roles I play, but together with that, giving me an opportunity to express the qualities that are inside of myself. Om Shanti. And so today, the practice we can have, using the word yoga and understanding it as a way to connect, to have union. So yoga is union. I can forge a powerful union with the source of truth by stepping up my awareness that I am a child of the Supreme Soul. I am a student of the source of truth. I am a companion of the Supreme Friend. So I'm going to ask our host to unmute everyone if it's possible. So instead of just saying thank you and goodbye on the chat, you can actually have your voice in the room. Please, if it's possible. I see there are some questions, and apologies if the sound has been breaking up. If others are having a similar experience, do let us know. And some of the other questions that you are asking, especially about karma and destiny, tomorrow is Saturday, but our sessions do continue, and we'll actually be taking up the topic of karma. So it'll be nice for you to actually do that. I would also invite you that if you feel you need something very specific, then in the beginning of the session, you can put your questions in the chat and we will guide you along as we go on, because the 21 steps actually is geared to actually answer those different questions for us to deal with the relationship with ourselves, with God, with matter, world, time. And so a lot of different areas have been incorporated, but even so, it'll be nice to get your questions. So please feel free to unmute yourselves, and thank you to everyone. Thank you, Sister Fatima, Sister Belinda. Thank you, everyone. Om Shanti.
Thank you.
Om Shanti. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Om
Thank you
Shanti.
very much,
Shanti. Thank
sisters.
you, everyone.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you,
too.
sisters.
Good
Om
weekend.
Shanti. Thank you.
Thank you, sisters.
Shanti.
Okay,
Thank you,
good.
sisters. It was lovely to hear you again. Sister Belinda as well. Sister Usha, thank you so much.
Okay, great, sisters. Do take care and see you tomorrow at the same time, 8 o'clock. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.